Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the TMS pod. My name is Mitchell, and in this episode, we have our second ever guest on the podcast. We're doubling up on guests here, and it is with Reilin Joey. Now, Reilin is an extremely talented filmmaker, director, editor. Essentially, he does everything when it comes to filmmaking and stuff like that. He has worked with some quite impressive brands like Bugatti, Ferrari, Polestar, Sony, DJI, and NASA even, which is pretty nuts. And he's done all this before the age of 21 years old. So he is pretty impressive, and we had the privilege to chat with him for about an hour and talk to him about a whole bunch of different things. If you are following the filmmaking space on YouTube at all, you probably have seen one or two of his videos because he recently just posted a video that's popping off right now about how he worked with Bugatti. It's a great video. Go check it out. It's going to be linked down below. Also, if you are a longtime viewer of the TMS Productions channel, you might remember that Reilin actually won our first ever editing contest that we hosted back in, I think, 2020. So he won that and ended up winning a drone from it, which is pretty cool. So the whole thing has essentially come full circle. Anyways, in this episode of the podcast, we talk about how he got into filmmaking, how he is able to work with big brands, and how you can too, as well as advice for young filmmakers looking to do the same. So enjoy. Welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, guys. What a lovely intro. Thank you.
Of course. I think we'll just jump right into it here. I think a place we like to start, especially when we're talking with filmmakers and stuff, is just asking them, especially when they're young filmmakers like you are, is like, how exactly did they get into the filmmaking game? Where did their interest come from? And essentially just your origin story, if you will.
Yeah. Well, first of all, really happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for coming. It's an honor, honestly, to chat with you.
Wow. Well, likewise. So yeah, my story. To be honest, it started quite a while ago, kind of with me fiddling about a bit with cameras, just with a little point and shoot I had lying at home. My mum's actually like a documentary camera woman, so she did a couple.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Couple series back in the day, like Dutch series. And then we moved from Amsterdam, where I'm currently living and where I was born. We moved to Berlin, to Germany. And in that switch, just a lot of new things happened in my life and a lot of change happened. So that felt like the first time where I really was excited to make something. I mean, anything that I did create wasn't really much. It wasn't really very special, but it was something that right. I felt like I wanted to create, just because I had new surroundings, I had new friends. There were like new exciting things going on.
How old are you? How old are you now?
I'm 21 now.
21, and so how old are you at this point in time that you would have, say, moved to Berlin and this time?
I think I was about 11 or 12 years old when I first picked up the camera. I moved to Berlin a couple of years earlier, but I think that's the first time I really picked up a camera. Just basically started off by doing, little things with friends, little shitty videos in vertical mode. And then, I think a mate of mine from school, he really got me into car photography. And it kind of grew into this thing where we would like go onto these really expensive streets in Berlin and like stand there with like 5 to 10 to 20 young guys that were all really passionate about cars, and that we would just stand on a corner waiting for like a special sports car to come by. And then everyone would get their little Canon 760D and like start shooting with it.
So what kind of cars would you be seeing on this street?
Oh, it was quite cool actually, because it was like one street called the Kurfürstendamm in Berlin, where you had like Rolex, Fendi, Prada, all these really expensive stores. Yeah. And so we'd see like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, saw Bugatti a couple of times. Like it was pretty cool for us then, at least. Now the excitement has gone off that a bit, but that kind of became a bit of like a competition between us. Who could get the best photo of a car that was driving by in like 3 seconds? Who could, get the best photo of a car that was standing at this hotel at that time, and we would all like run there, and I guess that kind of ignited a bit of a spark for me, because I was getting feedback from my friends, and also I was posting online on like a separate Instagram channel the car photos I was taking, And then eventually I kind of got in touch with the owners of the cars that kind of saw their cars online, the photos I took of them. And they kind of wanted to do some private shoots with the cars. So then I got to know them. And most of the time, I mean, it might sound logical, but most of the time these people are pretty, at least they have money. They're pretty influential also. I mean, so that was kind of a good way to get in touch with some higher end people who had connections to some brands maybe, or some, at least there was an opportunity to make some content.
Were these people that own the cars, were they like entrepreneur type people? Were they like brand owners, business owners?
Yep. Everything above. And I actually have, I know people to this day really well. That kind of also gave me a bit of a start back then. That I know from the car spotting thing. So
right. Nice. So like things have actually stemmed from you taking these pictures of cars and just being out there, and people saw you, as well as they saw your work, and then you actually managed to get things and jobs and opportunities from that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's a huge thing of just being out there, getting yourself out there in front of people, because it's quite common that I see a lot of people, they want to shoot cars, they want to do all these things, but then they're not too scared, but they're not, say, confident in their ability, or they just don't have the whatever it takes to, say, get out there and actually get in front of people and try stuff and be out there and be in the right place to reach opportunities and things like that. So wow, that's cool. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I think that's also the moment I did actually start posting stuff on social media. I mean, it went slow at first, like with everyone, I think, but
of course,
that's the kind of a moment you realize that there are other people out there also interested in what you do, and that also actually appreciate some of the stuff you do, and that can also have like a motivating factor, of course, at the beginning, where you're like, whoa, actually some people are like these photos, and that can give you a boost to create more and more and kind of get into a rhythm where
it sounds like I was just going to say, it sounds like from your story here, it sounds like you have a bunch of friends that do this as well and that are into filmmaking and photography. Is that true, or do you just make it sound like you have a bunch of friends? Or
I didn't at the start. Like I said, I had one really good friend called Tristan who got me into the car space, and then we kind of built a bit of a friend group around that. But I don't really know any of those guys anymore. I think throughout the years,
of course, you grow apart.
Exactly, I got to know a lot of other creators in the space. Actually, also, I think one of the ways to grow the fastest, especially when like in regards to your own skill, is like teaming up with others and other creators, because there's so much of such a quick, really intimate feedback that you get. Because
well, it's compounding of learning at that point.
Exactly.
If they learn something and they're like, hey, this works really well, they'll tell you, and so you don't have to do all that work to figure that out.
Exactly.
So that's like that's actually huge. So when you did these videos for like when these like owners of these cars would reach out to you, was this like free work, or were you actually getting paid? Like, were they actually offering to pay you money for these photos and videos?
It started out as free work, just because I was also we were really interested in the cars, so we were like, if this owner got in contact with us about his Ferrari, we were like, what? This guy's, he's letting us shoot his car? We couldn't believe it. And then, as time went on, I started charging, 50 euros, 100 euros for the shoots.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, does this stem into you doing, say, like the Ferrari 5 video and things like that? Is that where these kind of come from?
Technically, yeah. I mean, that project specifically was for Ferrari France. So Ferrari France basically opened like the biggest dealer in Europe, like the biggest car dealership, and they wanted to create like a launch film for the opening night. So they'd invited like 1,000 of the most prominent figures in the car business, and they wanted to have a film for that opening night. And I was already in contact with them like a year or two before, by actually going to a racetrack event that one of the guys that I met, 6-7 years ago on that street in Berlin, that guy hosted that event. So I went there I was actually connecting with photographers. And I remember on the last day, I was like at the track, and you have all these cars going by, so there's extremely loud noise all the time, so you can't really make good conversation. But I remember like seeing a guy with a really nice Sony lens somewhere at the end of the pit lane where the cars drive in and out. And I thought like, oh, should I go over to him, or should I, head home, because it was the end of the day. But I just decided, fuck it, I'll just run over there and see what he makes. So we connected, and turned out to be a really cool guy. And
Nice.
A couple of weeks later, he sent me like a couple months actually. He sent me a DM on Instagram saying that he was like low-key doing like a little shoot with some friends of his in Paris. There was going to be some cars there. He didn't say what or who they were. And he just asked me, do you like want to go? It's like, we can't pay you, but you can sleep at our place and let's just hook up and make some cool stuff.
So you were then, I guess, taking a risk. Like you had to get yourself to Paris, so you'd be spending your money
Absolutely.
to get there, but you're taking the risk to see what happens,
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so eventually I said yes, and I decided to just, I drove to Paris, and it's like a 6-7 hour drive from Amsterdam.
Okay.
And met the guys, and the moment I arrived at their place, they had like 4 Ferraris standing in front of the door. And,
oh my god!
And they were like, "Hop in! We need to go quick to the first location." And I was like, "What is going on?"
Oh god, that's amazing! That's awesome.
Yeah, and so the photographer turned out to have like a lot of contacts to car owners, and actually also was a really good friend of a racing driver, and he in turn was had very good contacts with the Ferrari car dealership in Paris.
Yeah.
So
right. So it sounds like this is a like, in terms of meeting people and connecting, it's a slow burn, because you're saying you met these people on the street, and then you're like 6 years later is when the guy was having the event, and then like that's a long freaking time, to the point where most people would be like, oh, he probably doesn't remember me, or I don't remember even who he is.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, and then I met this photographer. Then a couple months later, and for some people even a couple months is a long time.
Yep.
So it's a good lesson in like, hey, it takes time to build these connections, get out there and meet people.
For sure.
But also one thing to say is that it literally only takes one thing, or knowing one person that can spark everything. So if you meet one person, they could lead from like a connection here to a connection there to a connection here. And then it just like spider webs and spreads. And if you have great work, people will talk about you, and it will be like it'll happen faster than you expect it will, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean, you say that it you mentioned just it took a long time, like 6 years, until they suddenly, reached out. But I actually do my best to, when I do meet someone, at least, interact with their socials, send them a message, a positive message about their work every time. Because that upkeep of relationship is really important, I think. Yeah.
Well, I guess at that point, then you're kind of front of mind there. You're like, oh, there's that kid. He keeps commenting. Like, he's engaged with what I do. He's interested in what I do. You're not just, say, following them, and then you just never react to anything that they do ever again. You're just like, obviously people will forget about you. So it obviously takes work, and it's over time. So that's honestly something that we don't do enough, is like, we'll meet somebody, and then sometimes we'll like, I don't know, we just don't interact with their stuff to the point where it's like, oh, does he remember who we are? And like, so like, yeah, that's interesting. Stephen, we should do that more. We should. I know. That's kind of our motivation for doing this podcast, is we want to, we have a lot of people that we find very interesting in the space. But over the last little bit, we've never really had done an effort to reach out to them and be like, hey, let's chat or figure something out or just talk. And then, but this is a podcast is a great excuse to do that, because then it's like, oh, we can actually have a conversation, ask some questions,
for sure.
That. So
yeah,
this is like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone with this thing, because it's great content, but also it's a lot of fun to do. So yeah,
awesome.
So it sounds like you've done obviously a lot of branded work. What brands have you worked with, for context? You can brag here if you want, say as much as you want. But what would be your biggest brands or biggest things that you've done?
Yeah, it's funny. Always when I get these questions, I have a complete blackout. I suddenly can't remember a single brand I've worked with. But I mean, I recently did the Sony partnership, which was a Sony Europe.
I saw that video. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where they reached out and, they had this camera launch and we did work together. I'd done work for them in the past, which was more like a studio kind of interview setup that I filmed. But this was the first kind of cool project. But I've worked with. Let me see, because I actually do have to think about this.
I mean, I can start saying off a few that I know you've done.
Go ahead.
Your website, but there's like Bugatti, Ferrari. Well, Bugatti one is like posted on their socials from what I saw in the video. But there's Bugatti, there's Ferrari. I know you've done. I forget how you pronounce it.
I saw DJI was in there as well. Yep. You did something for DJI.
DJI.
Awesome. There's Cortina Bikes, which I don't know who they are, but the video was again amazing.
Yep.
And then Una24, which is that battery bank, I think.
It's like a Wi-Fi device.
Wi-Fi, okay, yeah. And then Sony, and then Ferrari, and a whole bunch of car stuff.
I have a quick question about that Una24 video, because I remember watching that video and being like, holy shit, I love this. I love the adventure aspect mixed with like everything about it was very well done, and how it was just all in all very well done. Do you want to give
multiple different locations too and things like that, which is awesome. Like Dubai and Iceland, of course, you want to film there. Those are awesome places. Wait. Give some context to like basically what it is for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Video. So, I'm just saying, give some context so people listening know what we're talking about. Because
here, I'll explain. Because I just watched the video. It's like the video starts with these people at looks like their houses, and they're kind of getting ready to go on an adventure, and then aren't they meeting up with each other eventually in the story? And
exactly.
The guy's going to Dubai, she's going to Iceland, and it shows like this Wi-Fi battery bank thing is like can adapt to wherever you go traveling.
Perfect.
And be your perfect travel companion and that kind of thing. So very well done. I'm going to link the video down in the show notes down below so you guys can go check it out. But I just have one question about that, is when you were the director for that, as well as like, what was your roles on that shoot? And also like, I'm curious what your team looked like for that.
Yep. Okay. So this was actually a project where I did everything by myself, basically. I had a camera guy there, and for one of the locations we had an assistant. But and I mean I have to honestly say a bit of way more than I can shoot, because this was like 2 months of complete hell. Producing everything, preparing the, like locations and all the different kinds of.
I was going to ask whether you had a producer on that shoot, or whether it was just you, because you have locations, but you also have actors. And I was like, man, I kind of hate dealing with actors. Did you have to do that and go through that pain? Or like, what was that like in terms of like, if you had someone to do that for you, or whether that was all you?
Yeah. So maybe I'll go into the front story first a little bit. This basically came about because I had a contact in Berlin from my time when I was still living there, who I'd done some interview videos for, and we had a really good click. And he suddenly kind of got into a leadership position at Una24 at this company, and we'd worked together, and we had on a human level we had a good connection. And he was like, "Do you want to produce this commercial for us? And what would it cost?" And that was for me also a time where I wasn't really doing any big shoots yet. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just grab my camera and, start shooting.
Sure.
But once I'd said yes to this thing, then I kind of slowly saw that there were a lot of expectations from their side, and a lot of different kind of steps I had to take to fulfill what they wanted. So then I started thinking, okay, like we need to, get this to the next level. So we went back and forth for a couple of weeks and like talking about locations and the story. We built that first, and then I thought like, whoa, we've gone this far. Why don't I just finish it off and produce it myself and direct it and edit it? So that's what I did. I just started planning with Google Maps. And Instagram, started scanning all the locations, and then I did some posts in a Facebook group here in the Netherlands, in like an acting group, where I asked if there was anyone that wanted to join us on like a little adventure to Iceland and Dubai. Yeah. And
I feel like you'd be stupid for saying no to that. That sounds like a great opportunity for an actor. Just travel to Iceland, Dubai. That'd be cool.
No, exactly. And then I ended up asking a friend of mine to shoot it and kind of have like an assistant role where we would be flexible, and sometimes I'd shoot some scenes, sometimes he would. And I mean, I cast the actors, the two actors, and basically took a really big dive into the deep end. on this.
Wow, that's awesome.
Nice.
That's so cool.
That's
well,
like
definitely. I'm gonna say that video looks like you had a whole team behind you, like you had producers and location scouts, because it was like it looks very well done. And
I've seen worse videos that have had a much larger crew, so it's just kind of funny to be like, oh, this guy had like himself, maybe another person, and that's it. Mm-hmm. The one thing that blew my mind is when you got the shots in the airplane with nobody else in the airplane.
Yep.
And I was like, I remember I messaged you on Instagram. I'm like, how the fuck do you pull that off? Because that's crazy.
You have to ask somebody to move, which is like the worst thing ever in an airplane, especially on like a long flight like that. They're probably getting all settled in, they're all comfy, and then you're like, excuse me, we're filming a thing over here, do you mind moving? Honestly, I think I would say yes, but I know a lot of people would not say yes to that.
Yeah, no, actually that's kind of how it went. First of all, we got lucky because it was during COVID time, so there were very few people actually flying.
Okay. That's good.
But we did actually ask a couple of people just to move. Just say, could you just move? Could you just lean back, just out of our shot, please? But yeah, we got lucky. It was actually kind of a blessing and a curse, that whole COVID time, because Iceland, for example, was completely empty. Because like normally there are like tourists everywhere, apparently.
That's when we went there, and it was bumping with people.
Yeah, exactly. And now we went there, and it was we didn't see a single tourist. Literally, not a single tourist.
Oh, wow. Was it hard to get in? Did you have to do stuff like testing and things like that?
Yeah. It was that was also the downside mainly. It was really stressful because the moment we landed at the airport, we weren't vaccinated yet. We didn't have any antibodies or whatever. So the rules were you could choose a hotel, you could go to that hotel, and you could stay there. And if you were, quote, leaving the hotel, it was like a $2,000 or $3,000 fine, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Per person. So we went there, we landed at the airport, and there was immediately like a police officer kind of saying like, okay, if you aren't there tonight, then, you're in trouble. And we were like, yeah, okay, fine. So we went to the hotel, and then in the hotel at literally 1 a.m., we got a phone call, like, just checking in if you're at the hotel. And we were like, yeah, we're there. And he's like, okay, could you just open the front door? And they were standing in front of our hotel room, checking if we were actually there, sleeping there.
Oh my God.
So that was kind of really stressful throughout the whole trip.
So how did you end up getting out to film then? If you were...
Yeah, so I kind of found a loophole. I did some research beforehand in the planning and found a loophole that if your hotel was far enough away from the airport, you could sleep in one other hotel along the way. And then we kind of, drove to the first hotel and just got out really quickly to shoot some scenes, got back into the car and started driving again.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So that's how we pulled that off. But overall, very stressful experience.
Wow. Nice. Okay. Well, I mean, you have some dedication to the craft then, because like there's so many people that I know that would be like, you know what, it's too hard, we're not even gonna try. But like,
can you you can answer this if you want to, you don't have to, but can you share with us what the budget for that video was, or again, you don't have to if you don't want to?
I think I can. I mean, I don't mind, but no, I think I can. The budget was about 15,000 euros for this. So
that's a good size. Yeah.
And that includes like what it costs to produce, as well as like what you're going to take home as well.
Everything. Yeah. So hotels, travel costs, everything, and then also the people I worked with. So I didn't make a lot of money on this, especially because Iceland and Dubai are quite expensive, both of them. It was. It's a real good. Sorry.
Oh my God.
It's like a delay.
No, you go ahead.
It was a real good start for me to get a grasp of what these bigger productions are like, and I mean, like I said, it was absolute hell for 2 months just because of all the stress and things that went wrong and things that had to be accounted for. So I'm never producing again myself, but it gave me good insight into the whole process.
So with that being said, what are your thoughts on doing like spec work and free work, and like how that plays into someone's career?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing I did to get to where I'm at now. So far, it's just coming back to me slowly. I've worked with clients like Sony Europe. I've done stuff with Audi here in the Netherlands a couple of times. I did a job with Polestar, which is like a sister brand to Volvo in Berlin. We did Ferrari, we did Bugatti, and yeah, the brands I just mentioned, I think maybe not all of them, but 80% of them all stemmed from doing spec work, or in this instance, maybe in Polestar. With Polestar, it was also a mix between like free work. So yeah, absolutely essential. I mean, because in the end, if a client wants a video produced, they want security and they want to know what you're able to do. And if you can show them exactly, this is what I can make. And if you might even have different, categories in like sports and fashion, and you can show that you're versatile and you can match their expectations, and that's the most important thing. You guys know this, of course, but spec work is for sure the most important thing. And I mean, a lot of times people ask me like, what would you how do I start, and what's the best way for me to become a filmmaker? And it's honestly just the simplest answer, which is just create, just make stuff, make as much as you can.
Yes.
I think I did in the first year where I was like kind of starting out, I did like 300 videos. Just, they were absolute shit, but it was just making,
They all start that way. Yeah, they
exactly.
all start that way.
I was just gonna say that the number one biggest thing for us, which is why like it's how we got into YouTube and why we even started posting YouTube in the first place, is just volume. Just do number of videos, and then you'll figure out how to do quality of videos once you get into it.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's like the number one biggest thing, that is like, just start making something and then go from there, which obviously you had the same experiences. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about getting the practice in and things like that. I will say sometimes we get comments all the time, people being like, oh, like I want to, I just don't know what to make. A lot of people say they don't know what to do. And it's like, I'm just going to say this more for the podcast rather than to tell you about it, just because you probably already know this, but like something that Steven and I have done many times in the past is what we do is we've done copy work. So like what you do is you find a video of something that you like, and like your goal is to go out and try to recreate it, because then you kind of you don't have to worry yourself with what the story is going to be, what the concept of the video is going to be. All your, like, especially when it comes to say editing, which I think is an area where a lot of people want to get better at, because it can obviously help you in your filmmaking career, but also in the filming category, just like find a piece that you like and try to recreate it. So figure out what kind of shots they're getting, go out and get those same shots, and then go out and then in the editing process, figure out how they edit it together, and then do the exact same thing. Because we've found that doing that totally removes like being like, I don't know what to film, what to do, except it still allows you to get the practice in and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So,
that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, these are things like, you wouldn't obviously release this because typically, you don't have the same budget as this video that you really liked, so it might turn out complete like shit. Or if it does turn out good enough, it's a complete carbon copy of the other person's video. So it's like, you don't want to release it.
And you're using it purely for practice. You're not using it to post anywhere really. But like, we've had friends being like, oh, I want to get into YouTube, but I just don't know what videos to make. And I'm like, honestly, go to Peter McKinnon's YouTube channel, scroll down to the videos that he's posted a year ago, read off the title, and that's your video idea. Like, just take that and interpret it however you will and make that video. And again, just post those or remake those videos and just get the repetitions and actually just doing the work and actually editing. And then you'll be like, I want to make my own thing. And then you do that by doing that. So
yeah, great. No, that's actually a really good tip. I might do that myself sometime.
We've done it. Steve and I have done it many times when it comes to editing. We're like, oh, we like that style. Let's just go out and try to, like, that's a lot of what, say, if you've seen our Spec ad series on YouTube, is like, that's a lot of what we're doing. We're on Instagram, we see an ad or a video that we like, and we're like, well, essentially because for the video, we're trying to make it a bit more original and put our own little creative twist on it, and not totally rip off whoever's video this is, but like, we use that as like a huge reference and inspiration for the video. And like, we kind of look at, oh, what kind of shots are they getting? What editing technique are they using? What's their frame rate? What's their aspect ratio and that kind of thing? And it allows you to kind of take little bits from things that you've seen and put them into your own work. So
yeah, no, I agree fully. And I think once you're kind of at a level where you feel more confident with the different, tools and aspects of filmmaking, what I do right now to to kind of improve myself and to get new ideas is constantly look at other people's work. So I subscribe to a lot of production company pages on Instagram and YouTube and Vimeo, and I try to do half an hour every day of just looking at new work, stuff that's out there. If I like something, I save it. I put it into like a folder where I say, you know, I like this because of the editing and that because of the sound design. And that way you can also kind of develop your own style a lot quicker because you've got, you know, high-end work that's out there, and you can take little bits and pieces that you like and that you don't
Actually,
like.
that's so powerful, because even for us, like on Instagram, if I ever see anything that's interesting, I save it and put in a little folder on Instagram. And then so whenever I'm, say, coming up with an idea for a spec ad or trying to come up with anything for a video, I'll just take a peruse through that. And if I see something that catches my eye, watch it, be like, oh, right, there's that. I could do that, which I'm sure obviously you draw inspiration from, and I'm sure you do the same thing. So that's such a powerful tool for something that is just saving things that you like versus just like see it and then it just disappears and just
100%.
Like, it's gone.
Yeah.
So,
This kind of leads into, say, another question which we had for you, which was when it comes to learning something new, what is your process for doing that? Are you a mainly like go to YouTube video kind of guy? Do you read books about it? Do you do courses? Like what is your say skill acquisition method essentially?
Yeah. I think 95% of everything I've learned, and I think this might, you might recognize this, is just by watching YouTube videos and by creating, of course. But, everything you need to know, you want to know, is out there. You just have to find it. And of course, that's it's a process, and I might have gotten lucky in the sense that I started early, so I had time to sift through 3 hours of YouTube videos every day. I watched YouTube religiously, and every different content creator out there that made good work, I was watching him or her.
nice.
And I mean, right now, I think, I think if you wanna start right now, I mean, there's so many good courses also online that are much more direct. That might be an option if you think there's one specific filmmaker that really works. But I think if you're dedicated and you really know where you want to go, then you can find everything on YouTube. As long as you try to implement that into your own work, then you'll be on the right track.
I've heard, I can't remember who said this really, but I've heard like, if you want to learn something, you can either kind of like pay for it with time or money. Like it'll either take you time or money to learn, and you can either pay money to learn it really fast, figure out money, or you could pay time and learn it slower than say if you bought a course for it. And but then again, you saved yourself some money. So if you have money and you want to learn something fast, you can spend money for it. If you don't have money, you can then spend your time on it. And it's kind of like, I've heard that and I was like, oh, that's very true. It's not 100% dead fast rule, but it definitely has some basis in reality for sure.
For sure, yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Now, something I was going to ask, which I mean, you kind of touched on slightly earlier, is that, so looking back on yourself, if you were 14, 15, or 16, what would you tell yourself from what you know now to get where you are sooner?
Good question.
Like one piece of advice or just one thing, if you're like super young and you're like, I wish I knew this sooner because like everything just kind of clicked after that. What would be that one thing if you could name it?
I think, it's definitely a combination of things that I would say. It'd probably be like a 600,000 word email that I would write to myself with stuff to do. But I think the main thing is just focus on your work. Focus on getting your work to a point where it's as good as it can be, and all the rest will follow. Now that doesn't mean that you need to completely ignore the business side and the structural side of creating content that connects with people. But if you make sure your work is as good as it can be and it catches people's eyes and it tells a strong story with interesting visuals, and if you can show that you have an interesting way of looking at the world, then the rest will follow, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very interesting.
Do you still look at videos that you've done that and like look at them and say, oh, I still want to change something?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I don't think I have a single video out where I don't. I mean, hate it is a strong word, but you know, which I'm
you wouldn't mind changing something on
exactly. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Even the work that I did, you know, for Sony in Morocco a couple of weeks back is already feels like I should have changed that. I should have done that differently. So yeah,
Right.
that I don't think that'll ever stop though, because it's like also, you know, something that keeps you improving, keeps you going, moving forward.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that means that you're learning. You're constantly learning, because the moment you say, "Yeah, no, it's perfect. Nothing I need to change," or even if you look back on it in a month or two and you're like, "It's still perfect," it's kind of like you just know that you haven't grown, because it's just like you're stagnant at that point.
100%
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. The now, okay, obviously, maybe now you don't consider that you've made it, but at what point would it be like, okay, I've made it? Like, where would you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think so. The direction I'm going in right now is, of course, building out my own kind of brand a bit more. So that's definitely the YouTube part. Creating a community also. And I'm actually not sure if I want to share this already, but I really want to set up like a worldwide creators agency, where you kind of have a community of people that all kind of have a similar kind of will to make good stuff, and then have similar style and that's fresh and young like you guys, and like create a really good community there, where it's not just jobs that you take and to each other, that you give to each other, take and give, but it's also that you just have a community where you can grow. So that would be cool for sure. And then as like an independent creator, I think shooting an Apple commercial one day, you know, if I can do that.
Yeah, that's a bucket list item right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, the
sick.
filmmakers, they get on there every time, even though they're anonymous most of the time. They're not allowed to, say who shot it.
I also know that, I'm pretty sure this is true, because I think we've talked about it on the podcast, really old episode, but Apple has like a dedicated agency for themselves only. Like, they don't work with a third-party agency, so they work with an Apple dedicated agency that only works on their commercials. And then, in there's a ton of anonymity in terms of like what you can share, who's even worked on it. Like, we know like a drone guy that's had a shot of his end up in an Apple commercial, but even then he like couldn't really say much about it, and it was
exactly
very interesting stuff.
Well, it's actually funny you say that, because we were in talks of doing a bunch of other commercial stuff, and then because they saw our stuff and they want to have a call just to kind of bring us into the agency, being like, hey, as like directors we could hire.
Wow.
And they saw our
wait, for who? What are you talking?
This is like Evan.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, not Apple related, but
no, this isn't Apple related. This is just sorry, recheck. Maybe I should rephrase this, but this isn't Apple related. This is more just like general commercial work, because this guy worked for a marketing agency or a production agency that works with a whole bunch of different brands. And he had seen our Apple Watch commercial that we did with the POV rig for our Spec ad.
I saw that. That was good.
Thank you. I mean, I'm really proud of that one, because it just turned out exactly how I imagined it in my brain. I was like, this is just great.
But there's always something you would change.
Oh yes, of course. But we did that, and he saw that, and he's like, yeah, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, we did it in like a day. He's like, wow, very impressive. And he's like, oh, we'll have to send that to Apple to see what they say, because he's like, this is just exactly along their lines of like what they would do for a commercial.
Yep.
And I was just thinking like, oh my God, that'll be sick, because like, who knows? They could be like, let's do it. And then, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean,
we haven't heard anything since.
We haven't heard anything since, but like theoretically, just like that hope and joy. I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Just like,
amazing.
Funny.
Yeah, no, I've actually, I think Apple might be making a move towards kind of a more open approach towards working with more production companies. I forgot this, and I'm not sure if I can say this. You need to remind me afterwards, but I actually did
I'll write down the timestamp here and we can cut it out.
I did a commercial for Apple Music 2 or 3 weeks ago, where it was a shoot with Metallica and Zayn, and that was done through like a newer production company that they were working with, and they approached me in the end, but it seems like they might be seeing a bit more, being a bit more open to what's out there. Yeah,
that's crazy. Oh, that's awesome. Nice. That's
That's sick. No, will we see that somewhere? I guess this might be like a Dutch commercial.
It's online already. It's on the official Apple Music YouTube channel.
Oh, wow. Sick. Okay, I'll have to maybe go take a look and see if I can find it.
Yeah,
that's dope. When you now, when it comes to filmmaking, like who is your biggest inspiration for filmmakers? Like people you see and you're just like, I want to do that, or that's sick.
I'd say there's about 2 or 3 directors that do commercial work. One is Valentin Petit. He's actually called, and he. Oh, no joke. Yes, passed away 3 or 4 days ago.
Yes. No, I heard about that because I know that there's a few people on Instagram that posted stuff, and I saw it, and it was incredible stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't. I couldn't believe that guy passed away all of a sudden. Because I was literally, every time I had a project, I would refer back to his videos, and he just has a really interesting way of approaching situations in a way that, and telling a story in a way that's very out there and really different. And if you see just a single frame of his work, you're like, that's him.
Right. Is he fairly young?
I don't know how old
he was 34, I believe, 33.
Oh
34.
Wow. Okay. That's wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, but he's for sure. That was a big loss. But him, and then Lukas Thielke is also another one. He's a director from Germany, I believe Düsseldorf, and he has some really good automotive work. And also started really young with just like little videos by himself, and then grew into like shooting jobs for every single car brand you can imagine. And he started his own agency now also, which is also very interesting to see someone else do that and do it successfully. I could probably give you a list with about 20 or 30 people just because, like I said, I try to get as much content and as
right. I find it interesting because you're not necessarily looking towards YouTube filmmakers, say Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, like that. You're going more like, hey, commercial direction in terms of like where you really draw inspiration from. Because a lot of people I ask that question to, they say like Peter McKinnon, Casey Neistat, like Nicholas Crystal, like all these like Sam Colder, especially those kinds of people where it's like very much like big hitters on the YouTube side of things. I find it interesting that you just go in the realm of like not necessarily super known on social media, but just crazy good commercial work in the paid space.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I definitely respect creators like Peter McKinnon and Sam Colder and Casey Neistat, absolutely. And I watch them regularly also. And I think also, like you guys, Peter McKinnon was one of the guys that, got you hooked into this whole YouTube filmmaking thing. But, I mean, these creators are big, and they are where they are, I think, at least, because they did something new, they did something interesting, and they did something special that might have started out small but then grew into something bigger. And I feel like if you kind of try to look into spaces where there might not be so many people watching, like these smaller directors doing commercial work locally or internationally, then there might be some more fresh new ideas instead of looking at big creators like Sam Colder or Nicholas Crystal or whoever that have a million people looking at them every day.
Exactly. That's a very good point. I also find like in those big creators cases as well is like oftentimes they also need to make a lot of them kind of get into, I'd say Sam Colder's a bit less about this, but like they get caught in the trap of like, oh, I need to make something because the general population's going to like it, versus like these directors can be a bit more like out there in a way where they can make something that like is a bit more unique, that not everyone's going to look at and be like, oh, wow, that's so great. It like hit the algorithm on YouTube, got 1 million views. And that's because that's not their job. Their job is to not get 1 million views on YouTube. Their job is to make a really compelling commercial, tell a good story, and do it in a very unique way, which aligns with their style, which is, so I feel like creators tend to kind of like cater to the masses. And then like these directors are a bit more like, this is what I want to do, and this is how it's going to go. So,
yeah. No, 100%. I'm actually also really curious about your journey on this, because I imagine that with you it started out as we want to make films and we want to create cool stories, and that it also kind of transitioned into maybe more of a YouTube focused thing. I don't know how that went.
Yeah, I would say like, I mean, our whole story, I'd say out of all the people that like our biggest inspiration for who got us into filmmaking was probably Casey Neistat was like A1 top of the pyramid. We actually weren't huge, not fans, but we actually weren't avid watchers of Peter McKinnon for like the longest time. And then I don't know why we just didn't find his videos, but there would be people on YouTube that we were like, oh, we want to make videos. Like Sam Colder was another huge influence on us. So like if you took Casey Neistat, Sam Colder, put them together, that's kind of who we try to emulate.
Yeah.
And especially on the social media side, we kind of are leaning into the creator kind of like
more
Mr.
clickable
Beast,
stuff.
more clickable stuff, because that is what gets the clicks. That is what gets
100%.
the numbers, and it is kind of what happens. But on the commercial side, on the actual freelance side, we do tend to try to take a bit more of a serious approach to it, which is a bit more of like, we're going to try to make something that's good, and we make something that the client's going to be happy with and does its job. And it might be a bit more unique and out there than say our YouTube videos would be. So for us, it is kind of like a double-sided sword, a double-edged sword, in the sense of like, we have to kind of like be these fun kind of charismatic people online and on the YouTube side to get the clicks, but then we do want to be respected as filmmakers on the other side. And some people, if they're not super big fans of what you do or really dive into what you do, they might see the YouTube side and be like, oh yeah, they're not good filmmakers. But it's like, oh no, but have you seen our other stuff, which is what we actually would do if you hired us to do a video. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We like try to balance both of those, and like we have fun doing both, and we like doing both. So I'm not going to necessarily change just because some guy is not going to hire me because I make a YouTube video about making a commercial for some funny brand, and we're going to make a funny video about it. But it is one of those things that like we do kind of need to balance and work with as filmmakers and stuff.
Yeah, I think balance is also the key word there. You know, it's very easy to tip the scale into one direction, and I think that's also why it took me quite a while to kind of really start with my whole YouTube journey, because I think I did about 6 or 7 videos that were like ready, where I did a video about some kind of an effect or some kind of a video I shot or whatever, where it was finished and I thought like, this is kind of, the scale isn't really tipped into something that I'm really passionate about and something that would connect to people. Yeah.
I mean, I would also say that there is like a bit of another double-edged sword here, where it's like, in some cases though, if you want to do YouTube, you do have to play the YouTube game, where it's like, if you have those videos about the effects or a tutorial type thing, just release it, because like that's especially a great way for you to say, get eyeballs, new people coming into you being like, oh, who is this guy? Build notoriety in terms of what you do. And then from there, you can do like films and stuff from there. And as long as you can show that you can do like good, high quality work, I think that you could also get a little in your head being like, oh, this has to be perfect. And like, it might get a little bit too much, but that's just the way I see it. So, I mean, everyone has their own style of how they want to post on YouTube and do stuff like that. You're obviously killing it because the videos you've posted have done incredibly well. So
thank you.
Maybe don't take any advice from me and just keep doing what you're doing, because you're killing it. So
thanks, dude. I
I
appreciate that.
2 ways to think about it on that. So yeah.
Okay. I have another question here, which is a bit more niche, but I want to know the answer to it. Is speaking of your latest YouTube video, you talked about working with Bugatti and making your video that you ended up getting reposted on the Bugatti Instagram account. You talk about in your color grading process your secret sauce, and I was wondering if you could enlighten us as to what that secret sauce is, if you want. I would love to know, just because you're like, yeah, so I just do this, I do this, and then I add my secret sauce. And it goes from looking pretty okay to like, oh, damn, that's very good. So
it's funny actually, because I think I literally, since that video came out, I get about 10 DMs per day asking like, what is your secret sauce? Where can I get it? But I might do a future video on this. I'm kind of reluctant on selling any LUTs or whatever, but it's basically a combination of a couple of different LUTs, color grading processes, and also exposing in camera is also a big part of the look that you want to get in the end. I try to, at least with Sony, I try to overexpose everything a little bit by about 1.7 stops.
Yeah, that's what we do too. We try to do that.
You're shooting S-Log3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a really big thing is also to take that look that you're kind of going for in the post, which is my conversion and then plus the secret sauce, and loading that into a monitor so that on set you know exactly what the final final image is going to look like. But yeah, it's basically a mixture of conversion LUTs plus some project specific adjustments to match the feel of the entire film you're going for. And then it's I kind of alternate between a couple of different styles. Some LUTs that I created myself. I sometimes use lens distortions, finishing LUTs. They have like a couple good ones. But yeah, my secret sauce is secret also to me because it changes every time. I think it's the best thing you can do is train your eye into kind of knowing what is your style, what do you like, and as soon as you kind of get a feel for, I like a bit more blue in the shadows and I like a bit more orange in the highlights, then you start developing that taste. Then I think you'll get to where you want to go pretty quickly.
Do you are you really big into the color grading side of videos, or are you a bit more of I do it because I have to and I know how to do it? It's just like that's not necessarily your favorite part, or do you love color grading and that kind of thing?
It's definitely not my favorite thing about creating, but it's also one thing I like about working on bigger sets, because I've done a couple this last year. I've transitioned to like slowly bigger crews. I also did the Cortina bikes commercial was actually the first proper commercial where we had like 35 people on set, and I was like directing 40-year-olds telling them what to do, and I was like, why would I have something to say about what you do? But the cool thing about that was that I could kind of for the first time see how all these different parts of the filmmaking process kind of come together, and how behind every part you have someone with a vision and someone that works with a color grader or an editor or whatever, and they kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and they work in harmony to kind of bring this entire vision together.
Right.
And yeah, that's a really special thing about filmmaking is I think that you have these different parts, these different instruments that you can kind of play to create an orchestra. And for me, the color grading is just a really, really cool instrument that is necessary for that entire process. So yeah, I definitely long answer for short answer.
No, that was a good answer.
Are you you're editing in Final Cut, or you're color grading in Final Cut, not DaVinci?
I switched about a year ago to grading in DaVinci, but only for the bigger projects. Like the Ferrari 5, I did mostly in DaVinci. But yeah, I mean, like I said in the YouTube videos, it's as long as you kind of know what you're doing, then it's possible with lesser tools. But DaVinci is 100,000,000% the way to go. Also in terms of editing suite, just because, I mean, Apple just brought out an update yesterday, I think, to Final Cut Pro, and I was like hoping they'd go above and beyond again, but it's
no, DaVinci just seems to be killing it every single time. It's like anybody who asks like, hey, I want to get into editing or like get into video, I just say like, just download the free version of DaVinci Resolve. You'll like be able to learn everything you need to know even before you have to pay for it. And it's just such a good tool to recommend as well. It's so easy to recommend. Premiere and Final Cut, I'm like, you got to pay for it. So if you're dedicated, then you could have it, but it's not the same sort of.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the only reason I'm sticking to Final Cut in terms of an editing software right now is because it works extremely fast with Apple, and I've just over the years, I mean, I started working in iMovie, so it's just I have all my commands customly figured out. I can edit really fast in that, and not really necessary to switch at the moment.
That's dope.
Nice.
What is your okay, so this is probably a classic question you get all the time, but what does your current filming kit look like? The kit of your camera kit, what does that look like right now in terms of your go-to?
It consists of a Sony FX3 and an A7S III. I've also got an FX6, and they kind of all share the same sensor, so that's a really nice, really nice setup, because you have the FX6 that I kind of use for bigger shoots also, which is really mandatory, where it's really much more mandatory to have like a body that you can build out into bigger rigs and monitors and everything. And you have the FX6, the FX3 and A7S3, which also share the same sensor and color science and everything that are much more portable. And I mean, I've shot on a lot of different lenses in the past. Also, like I recently did a commercial for the Dutch government with like a Leica lens set, like a really old Leica lens set. But you know, like I said, it comes back to if you know what kind of look you want to go for, shooting on 24 to 105 Sony is, you know, you can get those
like that's one of those things that when you like that really impressed me about you is that you are like, you're not so hell bent on being like, I need the shallowest of lens, or I need this lens to make my video look a certain way, because you're using a 24 to 105 f4.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the images you pull out of that thing are just unreal. And then it just goes to show that it's all about like the composition, the lighting, and color grading that really would have a way bigger of an impact than say, I need this certain specific lens because it's going to make my footage look a certain way. So that's something I found very impressive.
You can also see it with like creators like Danny Gevirtz, who's been blowing up recently. You know, some stuff he shot with like his FX3 and like a 24 to 70, it looks like an absolute movie, like an absolute blockbuster.
Yeah. And those lenses aren't crazy expensive. They're not like cinema lenses, so you don't have to like chill out so much money to get these things, which is awesome, because then it means it just makes it way more accessible with the tools you have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you want to do a bit of a rapid fire questions there, Mitch? These questions at the bottom here. Yeah, sure. Because I think we pretty much hit everything. Actually, I want to ask one last thing, which this might end up being a bit of a longer question. But what do you think that you do in your filmmaking that you think is unique to you and your style that you don't think other people do? So kind of like, do you have something that you're like, oh, this is kind of my thing that I like to do that I don't see a ton of other people doing?
Interesting. Good question.
Really put him in a hard spot here, Mitch.
Yeah. Just let me think just one sec.
Yeah, of course. Take your time.
I mean, I think one answer could be that, I don't know, I see a lot of people, once they get to a certain stage, they outsource their editing and their, they might direct.
We do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, and it works, of course. And it's probably a good idea once you get to a certain point, of course. But I find that there's something that happens in my process of directing and shooting. When I then go to the editing process, I kind of, because I know everything that we've shot, I know what happened on set, I know, little takes we took when the camera wasn't pointed at the subject anymore. Exactly, kind of those little details. As soon as you are aware of those and you can kind of go further with those in the edit, then there's like a special thing that happens. I feel like, but I mean, in regards to my style, I don't know. I like dynamic imagery. I like stuff that moves really fast and suddenly goes really slow and takes you, lets you breathe.
That comes across very prominently in your pieces that I've noticed. Is like there's a lot of motion and there's a lot of dynamic and like high energy moments.
Build up and then like release as well is a big thing.
Yeah, and that's also in storytelling. Just a tension and release is what keeps the viewer hooked. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Oh, that, and then wait, what is that? And then all these movies that keep you, at the edge of your seat. That's I think what they do very well. And if you can kind of pull that through in your visuals, that's I like doing that.
And I should preface also, when we say we hire editors, that's mainly for our YouTube side as well. Like when it comes to us doing client stuff and things like that, I still find that, yes, you're right. Like being able to know what you've shot and be able to use that in your edit accordingly because you were there is very powerful and it's a nice thing to be able to do. And the editor can't necessarily do that. So it's
and it's also not only doesn't only have to do with the process on shoot when you're shooting, but also when I'm prepping for ideas, I can already kind of in my head, be in the edit and see like, how could this work? How could I blend these shots together into one, like in the Una 24 video? There's just a much kind of more intimate connection between the pre and the post part.
Right. Of course.
Nice.
Of course.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Anyways,
Okay.
rapid fire questions. I got a few rapid fire questions. You can answer these in a 1 to 2 sentence answer, so you don't have to go super in depth if you don't want to.
Cool.
When you're not doing filming, what do you do for fun?
I make music, actually. I play piano.
Play instruments?
Yeah.
You play piano?
Yeah.
Nice.
I produce a bit of my own stuff and with friends. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing.
Okay.
Still in the creating, like you're still creating something, which is awesome. Okay, favorite movie?
Whew. Off the top of my head, I'd have to say Whiplash.
Or top 3?
Actually.
Okay, Whiplash. Oh,
Have you seen
that's
that?
second answer. Like second, the person, I mean, our editor that we had on the last episode of the podcast, he said the exact same thing.
Really?
Whiplash was a great, he said Whiplash was a great movie.
Oh, sick.
So,
Yeah, no,
that's
the
actually
way
really
that
funny.
kind of combines music and rhythm and sound with really strong imagery and a story and really good acting is just amazing. Yeah, really good.
I mean, that movie has a lot of like what you like, which is like the dynamics of like super intense and then release, super intense and release. That's very interesting. Huh. Okay. Do you still have the drone that you won in our editing contest? And do you still use it as well?
I do. I don't actually have another drone apart from that one. I do still use it. That's still my go-to
Which
drone.
drone was it again? I can't quite remember which
The
one.
Mavic Air 2. It was.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah, that's still a pretty solid drone. So.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't have done it without you guys.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we contributed to your career. You also had to just make a killer edit, and then it was pretty easy. So
No, actually, like the edit I did for you guys, that was at least a start of me creating a lot more. Just because I saw, I got a lot of people coming to my page through you guys, and a lot more eyeballs and positive feedback, and that's always like a motivating thing. So thanks for that.
no, that's been awesome. I remember the first time I watched that video, like where it's like I think it was a Saturday when we were watching 1,500 entries to our editing contest. And you're swiping through them, and some of them are like, they're all right. And you're like, okay, I get it. Like, they're very similar. And then yours pops up, and I remember looking at Mitch, and I'm like, holy fuck, I think we just found the winner. And this is like halfway through. So, like, there could have still been other ones. And then I was like, you got to watch this. So I sent it to him. He watched it, like, yeah, this one's insane. Anyways, it was
sick. Well,
very
thank
good.
you. That's
And,
very cool to hear.
especially for like knowing that, like, because everybody had the same footage and knowing what you did with the footage, that's just like what blew us away. We're like, this is crazy. Just like so many different angles you can take with the same footage. So also, if you're listening to the podcast, we do plan on doing another editing contest in the relative near future. So maybe we'll have Reilin be a judge. Maybe, who knows? We'll see what we can do with that. We also got to come up with an idea for it first. So
Sick.
yeah,
Cool.
And next question: what watches do you wear?
I actually have a Tag Heuer. It's the one I'm wearing right now. It's
Nice.
Are you a big watch guy, or is it like, are you just like a one watch kind of person?
yeah, no, I think I am. I mean, I don't have a big collection or anything, not yet, but no, for sure.
One day.
Yeah, one day. I've got a couple older, swatches and some Psychos, and but this is my favorite go-to.
Right,
Go for my
What
grandma.
is your like? What are you leaning towards in terms of like high end watches, like AP, Rolex?
Patek Philippe is my favorite.
Okay.
Especially the Nautilus line. You've got like
Yeah.
the 5711 and some other really clean designs. I really love that. And
Patek
that
is
that
that's
goes
classic.
paired with like a really rich history.
Nice.
So yeah, that's cool. And Rolex, Patek and Rolex, are my two favorites.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, those are awesome. Yeah. The other one, the next question we have is, how'd you get the Instagram name @Reilin? It's such a clean Instagram name.
I just got it really early. I was like 11, 12 when I uploaded my first shitty video, and I thought like, well, yeah, just type in my name and that works. So I just kept that.
Okay,
ever
cool.
since.
I guess you can't beat luck in that case. So, and then the other thing is, when it comes to filming and editing a video, what percentage do you think is filming, and what percentage would you say is editing for you? it can be like a 1-sentence answer, super quick if you.
Interesting.
Dive into
I'm actually working on a project right now that I filmed a couple months ago, which I already did an edit of, and I didn't like the edit. And right now I'm like trying to completely throw it over a different bridge. I don't know. I'd say 70% editing, maybe 30% filming.
Okay.
But that's for maybe commercial type specific stuff. If you're trying to tell a narrative story, I think it's very, very important to nail down your actual story and content and everything around that, of course.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. That's all the questions we have for you. Do you have any questions for us?
Amazing. No, I just wanted to say, I think it's really cool the direction you're going in right now, because I saw you're transitioning a bit from the more to a more business related videos.
That's a whole thing in it of itself, because Steven and I mean, we've been doing more business focused content, and it's been fun, it's been interesting, but like we're also realizing it's not performing at all on YouTube, and like no one really gives a shit because if it's already kind of all been said before. So we do kind of plan to kind of start moving a little bit back to our old style, but still kind of weave in some more like kind of like not like, I don't know, to try to kind of have a balance now between, because we kind of did a direct 180 switch from like our old videos to now these videos. And now we're like, okay, these videos, it's good sentiment. People are liking them. People are enjoying them. It's just that they are not, I don't know, they're not hitting the algorithm. They're not getting the views, and they're not getting clicks, which on YouTube is kind of the whole point, which is, it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is.
I was going to ask you about that. If you're kind of thinking about moving back to more, because the way I found you guys is a couple of years ago when you did like that video on Sam Calder where you analyzed his style. That was the first one. Like, damn, these guys
are classic.
Really,
that
was our very first viral video. That's the first video we've ever done that got like over 15,000 views, 20,000 views. But I think it's sitting at almost over 1 million now. So.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's wild. It's actually wild you came from that, because everyone says like that, or there's like our Out of 52 series where we did like 52 videos in 52 weeks over a year kind of thing. And I'm surprised people still hang on for that long. I'm just like, it's just kind of funny, but it's such a long time, because that was like 6-7 years ago now. So it's been quite a journey. But so we're trying to get back to doing the spec ad stuff. So we have quite a few really, really good videos that we want to start like releasing over the summer, because especially now that the weather's got a lot nicer, it's a lot easier to go out and film. I think we're getting back to how we used to do it.
Cool. So, I look forward to that, because you did that really, really well. So yeah, cool. But like I said, still the stuff you're doing right now is also very, very insightful, and I think it's more difficult for it to get numbers, stuff like that, because it's a lot less visual. You know, when you're creating something like spec ads, it's like people can look and listen and interact, and when it's business stuff, you're like, okay, taking notes,
Yeah, it's a lot of like we've had kind of the idea as well of like much like how you were talking about building a community and things like that. It's like we kind of want to start ourselves kind of like, whether it's a Discord or whatever, kind of a community that way, but then have those, maybe do more of those like hardcore business talking head videos in that kind of community, because then you're only getting people that really care and that are really interested in that kind of stuff. And then we save, like, the YouTube is kind of our top of funnel, getting people interested and then getting them to come down, join the community, become interested, and do it that way. So it's
awesome.
That's kind of an idea that we've had. So
so the video, actually, we're posting a video hopefully today or tomorrow with the DJI Inspire 3, which would be fun.
Wow.
But that one's kind of like very much going back towards our like older style, where we like going out and actually doing stuff, which should be a lot of fun. So
sick.
Great. That drone is insane. Like, they sent it to us and they're like, hey, do you want to try it out? And we're like, I'm gonna be stupid if I say no, so of course I do.
Wow.
And they sent us the drone, the two controllers, and it's nuts. Like, I'm sure you'll be using one eventually someday soon here, but it's a lot of fun to use, and it has like amazing footage, and it's
crazy.
It's
wow, that's so cool that you got to shoot with that.
Yeah.
I saw the.
Well, it's funny because.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I saw the I think Tokyo video. It was like Tokyo at night or something, or a big city at night where they shot on the DJI Inspire 3, and I was like blown away by the quality of that.
We did night flying with it, which is a little sketchy because landing it is a little bit tricky, but the stuff that we got looks like a movie. Like, it looks like we took a helicopter and we're filming with a Red, out of the window of the helicopter. It looks nuts. So it's
crazy.
You'll see, if you watch the video today or tomorrow, you'll see. But the
So yeah. Anyways, that's I think everything we've got for today. This has been an amazing conversation. This has been awesome.
Yes, thank you for your time. I mean, I think we've been going for like almost an hour and a half or almost 2 hours now. So thanks for being here.
Thanks you guys. I really enjoyed it also. I hope I didn't talk too much. I usually don't like talking, but about this stuff, it's no.
No, exactly. I mean, that's what you're here for, is to talk. I feel bad if I start talking a lot because I'm like, obviously people are here like they want to hear you, and so gotta make sure that you did a great job. This has been awesome.
Thank you everybody for watching and listening to the podcast. If you're new here, make sure you go down and subscribe to the channel. Also follow us on iTunes or Spotify if you're listening there. Go check out Reilin's stuff. Go check out all of his stuff. It's going to be linked down below. His YouTube, his Instagram. He's got you'd be stupid to go check out his stuff and not follow him. So go make sure you do that. And yeah, I'm sure we'll see you guys in the next episode with hopefully another cool guest. So see you later.